O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Om Bhuvasvaha. Om Tatsaviturvarenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. Dhiyo Yo Nः Prachodayāt. Om Bhuvasvaha. Om Tatsaviturvarenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः. ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं. भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमय. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sumanji?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Will you read the verses 15, 16, 17 and 18?
Okay.
You have the book?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, you can read the comment, the translation and the commentary part also for all the 4 verses.
Okay. Just a minute, let me close the door.
Your voice.
Namaste, Krishnapani ji. Chapter Krishnapani ji.
13. Chapter 13. Yes, 1-3. 1-3.
Okay.
Verse number 15.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm starting.
Yeah, please. Slightly louder.
Yes. Sarvendriya gunabhasam Sarvendriya vivarjitam Asaktam sarvabhrichaiva Gunam gunabhoktricha. Having no senses and yet all the senses and sense qualities, unattached and yet all sustaining, is that the Nirgun, beyond all qualities and yet the enjoyer of all qualities. All relations of soul and nature are circumstances in the eternity of Brahman. Sense and quality, their reflections and constituents, are the Supreme Soul's devices for the presentation of the workings that his own energy in things constantly liberates into movement. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charameva cha sukshmatvat tadavigyeyam durastham chantike cha tat. That is the interior as well as the exterior of all beings. That verily is the moving as well as the unmoving. That is unknowable and incomprehensible for the reason of its subtlety. Staying afar and also abiding near is that. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva cha sthitam bhuta bhartri cha tagyeyam rasishnu prabha vishnu cha. The status undivisible, yet as if divided in the becomings. The sustainer of all beings is that knowable, all originating and all devouring. Jyotishamapi tad jyotihi tamasah paramuchyate jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam hridhi sarvasya vishtam. The light of lights is that said to be supreme, above all darkness, knowledge, knowable, known, seated in the heart of all. This eternal light is in the heart of every being. It is he who is the secret knower of the field, Kshetragya, and presides as the Lord in the heart of things over this province and over all these kingdoms of his manifested becoming and action.
Thank you, Sumanji. We are continuing with the aspect of trying to understand what is it that is the knowable. What are we supposed to know and what is the nature of that knowable, Jnaya? As we discussed earlier also, the Jnaya is essentially nothing other than the Brahman. Now, how do you understand this Brahman? There's a problem now. Because none of the instruments that are available for our purpose of knowing or understanding as we consider it at our level of consciousness are not at all suitable to know this Brahman. So in an indirect way, in a manner which is descriptive in some respects, which gives us a semblance of understanding. We really don't understand anything actually. Something beyond the mind, how is it possible for the mind to grasp? But a verbal attempt is made in order to give an inkling of it to this mind and also to let the mind know that by its very construction, by its very structure and function, it operates in limitation. In this particular verse, the Brahman is something which is beyond the gunas, but at the same time beyond the senses. We'll come to the gunas later on. Beyond the senses, but at the same time it appears to be operating through the senses. The Sanskrit term that is used is abhasa. Abhasa means apparently or that which is reflected. Like one is able to see the reflection of the sun, but not the sun itself. Reflection of the light of the sun. But one cannot see the sun directly. This is a very mundane example or a very physical example, but it reflects or it gives us an idea about what is it that is being spoken of. Sarvendriya gunabhasam. Indriya and guna abhasam. It reflects or appears to be apparently operating through all the indriyas and their respective properties or respective functionalities. That means the functionality of the eye is to see. that can be called as the guna of that particular indriya. But by itself, it is sarvendriya vivarjitam. It has no senses of its own. What constitutes the seeing of the eye, what constitutes the hearing of the ear, what constitutes the property of smelling of the nose and the touch of the skin and the taste of the tongue is this Brahman. But does the Brahman itself have any sense organs? No. This, even at our own level, we can understand this aspect without much difficulty, because the instrument is there. Like, for example, the eye or the nose or the tongue or whatever it is, the instrument is there and it has a functionality. And there is a link to the brain through the nervous system. Everything is in order. So if there is something which is very, which gives out fragrance, the nose can smell it, and the connecting link with the brain cells can also experience the fragrance. But there could be a situation, for some reason, the nose is there, the object which is giving the fragrance is also there, and the brain cells or brain nervous system is also functioning very well, but you can't smell. That is what one of the features of the COVID-19. One loses the sense of smell. What has happened here essentially? There has been some defect in the instrument and the connectivity and all that. But we can also extend this analogy to a different level and say that there could be a state of consciousness in which everything is present but nothing is felt. That is how we come to the three states of consciousness. Consciousness when we are awake, when we are dreaming, or when we are in deep sleep and all that. The deep sleep experience is normally related to this, which says that you are there, your entire body is there, the nervous system is there, the brain is there, the nose is there, something fragrant is there around you, but still you don't feel it. Does it mean that you are not there? Technically, from the mental point of view, yes, we are not there. But at a different level, we are conscious, we are alive, but we are unable to, the brain is unable to capture the the sensation or the actual experience of that consciousness. Now, indirectly, this whole thing is being indicated towards that which is beyond all these things, yet operating through these things. So you see, all things are essentially rooted in Brahman, which is existence, which is Sat, Chit and Ananda at the manifestation level. So when everything is rooted in that eternal existence, whatever is manifested is also pervaded by that existence. that pervasion of everything in existence is being indicated by the term Sarvendriya Gunabhasam. Apparently, it appears as though it possesses all the sense organs, or it has, by itself, it has no senses, but is yet reflecting through all the senses and sense qualities, Indriyas and their respective gunas. You see the paradox? No, when we talk about anything which is transcendent, the point to be understood is that the logic and reasoning which is applicable to that which is amenable to the senses and the mind does not apply here. And therefore, they are all puzzles or paradoxes or contradictions, or one can say that they are mysterious. But the mystery or the contradiction or the paradox cannot be resolved at this level. For example, in the same verse, he continues to say, Asaktam is unattached. It is not bound to anything. But at the same time, yet all sustaining, Sarvabhrut. That means, if it were not to be there, nothing would survive. There won't be anything to sustain the whole manifestation. Unattached and yet all sustaining is that. That with a capital T in the translation of Sri Aurobindo refers to that Brahman. Similarly, Nirgunam, it is beyond all qualities. It has no qualities at all. Guna Bhoktrucha. But it experiences or is the enjoyer of all gunas. Again, we have these contradictions and paradoxes. Is it necessary at all to confuse us with these kind of explanations? Actually, no. There is no necessity to confuse us with all these examples. If one were able to live with a full sense of attention to everything in manifestation around oneself. Because that doesn't happen, because at any given time some particular sense is predominating or operating more efficiently, the other senses are dormant, and then the mind itself is fluctuating and operating in inattention. To give us an idea about the nature of Brahman, such explanations are given. So actually speaking, these explanations do not explain anything if we do not go deeper into it and go beyond the explanation. The description can never be the described. However elaborate, however detailed the description may be, it can never be the actual thing, which is the knowable, which is the jnaya, which is that which is being described. This is where we need to try to grasp something which is very elusive. It's very elusive. both the faculty of discrimination and the faculty of the mind, that is buddhi and manas, are temporary instruments which are to be discarded later on in our effort to understand, at least verbally and intellectually, the nature of this Brahman. That is the reason why when they say in all Indriyas, it includes the faculty of buddhi and manas also. Because manas is considered as the sixth instrument. Buddhi is, manas and buddhi are also part of the antahkarana. So you see the point now. We are trying to grasp, which is something very subtle. In the coming verses, he talks about the sukshmatva also. So here is an indication through three examples or through illustrations. There, though it is devoid of all senses or sense organs, it reflects through all the sense organs and appears to be operating through them. Similarly, it is unattached, but at the same time it is that which is sustaining everything. Similarly, it is beyond all constituents or gunas, but yet it is the one So you see the point now. In fact, the word relations gives us an idea about the temporary nature of things. That means it is relative. The theory of relativity also, from a philosophical point of view, talks about this. And in fact, Jiddu Krishnamurti goes on to say that all life is relationship. And therefore, you can understand even the Brahman only through relationships. If you are able to see the false as the false, that itself is the truth. He very beautifully puts it as seeing the false in the false is the truth, and seeing the truth in the false, that this is false. This is only operating within the spatio-temporal framework through certain instruments. And what is actually operating or what is actually behind the operation of all these instruments, the sense organs and the gunas, and what is sustaining all this, without being involved in it, can be understood only when you are acutely aware of the relationship between the soul and the nature, between the Atman and the manifestation. This is the essential aspect of this particular verse. Sense and quality their reflections and constituents are this Supreme Soul's devices for the presentation of the workings that his own energy in things constantly liberates into movement. One of the important aspects of life is movement, isn't it? See the point. When do you say that something has life? From our own sense perception point, when it is moving, when it is growing, when it is modifying itself. So this eternal movement, which is constantly there in manifestation, is an indication of the operation of that Supreme Soul, the Brahman or the Paramatma. And all the senses and the qualities are the devices or instruments of that Supreme Soul. For what purpose? For the presentation of the workings that his own energy in things constantly liberates into movement. This is how it's operating. So you have to see the relationship between the individual entity and the nature, and also understand that these sense organs, these qualities, and all of them are constituents or are devices of that Supreme Soul, which is the cause, which is the sustaining cause of all that is manifested, at the same time remaining totally unattached, totally dissociated from the senses and sense organs and their qualities, also beyond all the gunas. Beyond all the gunas. This is the fundamental aspect. This is the fundamental aspect. This is what we have to understand through this process. This is the essence of it. In this sense, these words has to be understood as a practical means of experiencing the known and also the fact of its own limitations, and that what we consider as the known cannot sustain on its own. There has to be something beyond it. There has to be totally something beyond it. Otherwise, this whole thing cannot sustain. That is being referred to as the Brahman. And this aspect is further elaborated in the next verse. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charamevacha sukshmatvat avigneyam durastham jantikecha. Bahirantascha, that is the interior as well as the exterior of all beings. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charamevacha. That verily is the moving as well as the unmoving. See, the beauty of the Sanatana Dharma is the recognition of the fact that life and consciousness pervades the whole manifestation. So what is inside and what is outside of all beings, and what is moving and unmoving. See the classification. The Vedantic classification does not talk about the living and the non-living. There is nothing called as the non-living at all. Everything is living. So how do you distinguish things? They said what is moving and what is not moving. What is achara and what is chara. Another term that is normally used is jangama and ajangama. This is another dimension of it in the sense that which has the desire or ability to move and that which does not have the desire or ability to move. Jangama means it includes not only the movement aspect of it but also the capability to move. See, for example, I am capable of moving, but I am also capable of remaining unmoving. You have so many creatures. Very interestingly, if you see a lizard, a common house lizard, it stays at a particular point for hours together. It doesn't move. Absolutely nothing is moving. But it has the ability to move. So that is the classification of Jangama and Ajangama. So the Vedantic classification is very clear in this respect because it has fundamentally recognized that the eternal principle of universal consciousness is all pervading, and that is the very first mantra of the very first Upanishad. The Ishavasya Upanishad talks about that. Ishavasya vidam sarvam yat kinchat jagatyam jagat. In fact, the root of the word jagat also comes from the root to go or to move. Ga, gam, gacha. It comes from that root. So, when it is all pervading, it means that it is inside and outside also. It is the interior as well as the exterior of all beings, Sarva Bhutana. And it is verily what is moving and what is not moving. And he adds another dimension to it, which we just discussed, about being very subtle. Sukshmatvat. Because it is so subtle, so swift, so incomprehensible. That is why he uses this term avigneyam. You cannot know it. You cannot comprehend it. It is unknowable in that respect. Because of the sukshmatvat. That is unknowable and incomprehensible for the reason of its subtlety. And at the same time, it is durastham chantike chatat. It is far away and also very near. This far away and near is not merely spatial. We're not talking in terms of something which is thousands of miles away and a few inches close to me. I'm not talking about that. Dura and Antika, that means far and near, is not merely spatial, it is also temporal. It is also from the point of view of time. It is also from the point of view of time, because either you know it or you don't know it. Either you know it instantaneously or you will never know it. In fact, the Bhagavad Gita is called as the essence of the Upanishads because some of these ideas have been directly taken from the Upanishads. The Ishavasya Upanishad itself says Tad Dure, Tadvantike. It is far off, it is near, it is here and now. And it is also from the point of view of time, as I said. You can't bring the dimension of time into it. You will progressively know it. You will know it later on. Either you know it or you don't know it. Either you know it, as I said, instantaneously, which is repeatedly emphasized by Jiddu Krishnamurti, that it is now and at this instant, in this moment, one has to know. And Adi Shankara also brings out that idea. Abhijñātataya dūrastham varshasahasrakotyapi avidusham apraptatvat. For an ignorant person, you can't know it after a million years. Varsha Sahasra Koti. In fact, tens of billions of years. You can't know it. And when you say Antike, here, what is the most closest thing to oneself is one's own self. The Atma itself, whatever is the self. There cannot be anything closer than that. So whether you see the whole of manifestation and the billions of stars and galaxies and the expanded universe around you and something which is very close to you and in your heart, and the recognition of the fact that I am there is also a part of it, because it is both Bahihi and Antaha. It is inside and outside. It is moving and not moving. But why is it that I am not able to truly recognize it and it's eluding me? It is because it is very subtle. Adi Shankara very beautifully gives the description of Bahihi, what is outside. He says, anything that is beyond the skin is outside. Bahihi tvatparyantam deham atmatvena avidyakalpitam apekshya tam eva avadhi krutva bahihi uchyate. That means with reference to the body, anything beyond the skin is outside. So when we talk about inside, that's why one says that one has to come to it. Do you feel it through your bones, through your muscles, through your nerves, through your senses, through your entire being? Because that is what is internal to you, which nobody else can sense or experience. That is the nature of this, again, this Brahman. It is inside and outside of all creatures. It is moving and non-moving, and it is far away and very near. The wholly other is intimately oneself. Everything we consider to be other than me is intimately myself. That is the nature of the Brahman. Now, see, even a superficial intellectual comprehension of this idea would bring about a great transformation in our perception and action. I will have absolutely no desire to harm anybody, to compete with anybody, to be aggressive, angry, frustrated with anything, isn't it? Because there is no difference at all between the inside and the outside, between me and all the creatures, all the living beings around me, all the other bhutas, all the other beings. So even an intellectual appreciation should bring about the transformation in us, that I would not like to engage myself in any negative manner, in any harmful manner with anybody else. So I am in a totally different state of mind now, because deep inside I recognize this fact. Because this idea of knowing, understanding, grasping, realizing, experiencing, and all this nonsense is of the mind. If that were the case, the mind is very cunning in this sense, it would like to grasp everything outside itself except itself. If the mind is so fond of grasping everything else other than itself, it should also turn towards itself and try to grasp what it is. But it's not interested in that. It's always interested in grasping something which is outside it. That is the reason why they said don't do this, because it's endless. You want to go outside, and you want to grasp everything and try to understand everything in its detail. It will go on infinitely, endlessly. So what is important is to turn the direction inwards and try to know the knower. That is a beautiful question which the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad puts. Vijñātāram hare kena vijanata. How does the knower know itself? How to know the knower? By whom will the knower be known? You see, as I said, all this is an elaboration on the fundamental idea of Brahman, which is the only thing knowable, worth knowing. Because everything else is a reflection of that. So we are able to know at one level through the functionality of the senses, sense organs, objects of the senses, the whole nature around us and everything, that there is something which is operating this. That very perception is sufficient in itself if we are able to hold on to it with all our attention, with all our energy. One need not make a separate effort to know the Brahman, because it is not knowable through this process. Like again, the Buddhist analogy of pointing towards the moon. Finger is the pointer. The finger is not the moon, or the finger is not touching the moon, but the finger is pointing towards the moon. So you need to follow the direction of the finger and see the moon for oneself. This is knowable. This is something which is within my reach, within the reach of the mind. So I hold on to it and proceed from there to see what it is pointing towards. It is pointing towards something which sustains the whole thing. That is the idea. And he continues in the next two lines, the two verses also it continues. We will take it up in the next class. But fundamentally, this is the idea. You have to come to it through a deep, abiding sense of perception through sensitivity. What does sukshma mean? What does subtle mean? That I am not sensitive to it. We have earlier talked about this: sensitivity, intensity, and urgency. And these three are not there. It is very far, it is very near, but very far. So even after a billion years, you will never come to know it because you are stuck in ignorance. One needs to be sensitive to the whole thing in order to get an inkling, as I said, at least an intellectual appreciation of what the Bhagavad Gita is talking about. It is Brahma Vidya and Yoga Shastra. It is simultaneously that which is to be practiced as a science, the science of yoga, the science of integration. And at the same time, it is that profound wisdom of the ultimate reality. Every chapter ends with this saying. It is Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishads Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Sambade, so and so, so and so. So it is indicated there, it is Brahma Vidya and Yoga Shastra. Through intense effort in the initial stages to understand what is readily available for us to know, and also what is readily available to us to understand that it is limited. Therefore, it should point out to something which is unlimited, which is infinite, which is eternal, and which is the source of all energy for the operation of the soul of manifestation. This is the fundamental idea. One needs to come to that recognition, that perception, that sensitivity, whereby there will be a transformation. There will be a total transformation actually. That very perception brings about the transformation. As I mentioned earlier, what is the incentive for me to harm anybody or grasp anything or grab anything or become greedy or envious or jealous about anything? It is only my own ignorance which is creating all these barriers and creating all this complication in me. The moment I see the limitation, the moment I see that what is inside and outside is wholly pervaded with that, and that I am intimately related to everything else, then effortlessly and automatically all these things will drop off. I need not fight with each of these individual enemies, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada and Matsarya. I need not fight with them individually. Today I will not have any desires, or today I will not get angry, or today I will not be greedy. That is a foolish exercise. You can go on doing it for eternally. You can go on doing it forever, but you will never be rid of desire or anger or fear or greed or hatred or envy or jealousy. You will never be able to. Only by seeing this essential unity of things. That's what in the next verse we'll come to it in the next class. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktamiva cha sthitam. Avibhakta. It is undivided one. Beautiful sky. It is like the space. Yes, sir. But it divided of Akasha here and some part of space and some part of the space outside the room. It's really divided that way. It appears to be divided, but essentially it is undivided. Because it's already 11:34. Come to it in the next two verses. We can take it up in the next class. And we'll have some time if somebody wants to discuss any points. We can take up the discussion. If you are Arangiji, any question, any point for discussion?
Thank you, sir. I'm enjoying it. I'm understanding myself now. That is what is the most important.
Okay. Very good.
I try to.
Meena Nirula.
A lot of ego was there.
Yeah.
Now gradually it is all getting shed off.
Meena Nirula ji. Yes, sir. Srinivasan Rao ji.
Thank you, sir. I am able to follow what you are saying. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Meena Nirula ji. Any point for discussion? Not able to see her. She is not unmuted herself.
Yes, sir.
Sir, it was very interesting, that 14th one. Sarvendriya Gunabhasam Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. That thing
Yes.
was very nice, sir. Very nice and very nicely explained also. I really enjoyed.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is like
Yes, Manjula ji. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, it is
One-
desire and desireless.
Essentially, what we are saying is that we can experience the eternal here and now by looking at our own self. Normally, we start with the assumption that it is very difficult to know the eternal, the Brahman, and it is the and all that. But it is actually very simple when we start observing ourselves. When we start observing ourselves, it becomes very simple. Okay,
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
that's the point I wanted to make. Yes, Meenaji, you want to say something?
You, you have been doing a very beautiful job. I mean, explaining so well every bit of it. But here, when we do other programs, which talks about self-manifestation and it talks about how we can bring those things into our life, it is totally contradictory to what we are doing it in the Bhagavad Gita.
No, see, externally, you need to be very efficient, you need to be very progressive, you need to be doing things in the best possible manner. And you need to learn also. There is no contradiction as it is. The contradiction comes when you divide your life into several parts. See, the essential aspect is when I am doing something, I am supposed to do it in the most skillful manner, in the most efficient manner, and the Bhagavad Gita talks about that also. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. See, to tell you the truth, when I was very young in my school days and college days, when I was reading Vivekananda, I had this problem. He made a statement that one becomes very efficient when one drops the desire for the fruit of one's action. That's what again the Bhagavad Gita talks about. But he was mentioning that one could be most skillful and most efficient by dropping this constant, you know, that the desire for any fruit, any action is a hindrance. Doing the work because the work is to be done. You are doing the work expecting a certain return. So the moment you get that return, you will stop working. You see the point now. So the subtlety is understood that even from a worldly point of view, one can be very efficient, very successful, very progressive, very dynamic in the world. But at the same time, realizing this fact that this efficiency is not on account of my hankering after desires, but the efficiency is because it has to be done that way, that's all. One has to be very punctual. Now, how is it contradictory to the discussion which we had today? One needs to be very efficient. Whatever work I do, I have to do it with full attention. How is it different from what we discuss? See, because unfortunately what happens is, elsewhere people talk about only one dimension of it and forget the other dimension, and therefore it appears to be contradictory. But when you take both the aspects together, there is no contradiction. You understand the point, Meenaji? Please unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
yes, sir. True. Yeah, true,
So
sir.
there is,
True.
so
Very
there
true.
is no, so there is no contradiction.
No, sir. Here,
Huh.
here, when we are discussing all this, that I am in all and everybody is in me, and we're talking about
Yes.
the Atma Bhava. So then it becomes natural for anyone to behave in that same Sarva Atma Bhava. But we
Right.
don't. Ha, ha.
No, we don't is a different matter. See,
Yes.
out of habit, out of your own compulsion, out of your own fear, out of the cunningness of the mind, you may try to continue to behave in the manner you behave every day in the world. But that doesn't mean that this is not true.
Yeah, that is because of our ignorance. We are
So yeah, see that ignorance. That is what I said. Are you able to see the false in the false? False as the
Yes.
false.
Yes, very true.
Once you see that false as the false, that itself is the truth. Why is it that I am not able to behave in this manner in the outside world? Because I am assuming that I will lose something, or somebody will cheat me, or somebody will take me for a ride, or something else will happen if I am not careful. Because that is what I have been, for past 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, state of consciousness. Other than that, creates this problem.
Correct.
We have to come to that. We have to come to that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Any other this thing? Bashaji, Sheikh Sanawar Bashaji. So if there is nothing much, we will close it. For today, it's already 11:44. We'll close it for today and take it up next Saturday, the next two verses. So I'll close it with the Loka Samastaha. Om Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Gobrahmanebhyah Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Om Tat Sat Brahma Pranamastu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you so much. I am ending the meeting now. Thank you.